Joining me right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, the author of the new book, The Soul of Basketball, the epic showdown between LeBron, Kobe, Doc, and Dirk that saved the NBA. Ian Thomsen, longtime veteran NBA writer, joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Ian, how you doing on this Saturday?
Great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. So before we get into the details of the book and the other things associated with it, what caused you to want to write this book? Because, I mean, this is a really deep dive into a lot of the inner workings and the history behind a lot of these players and what went into a lot of the decisions they've made in their careers.
Yeah, I've been covering the league one way or another since my first job at the Boston Globe. I was at all three of the Magic versus Larry finals back in the 80s. I was with the Dream Team for all their games in Barcelona in 92. Since 2000, I was covering the league full-time with Sports Illustrated. And I developed a lot of relationships with the most important people in the NBA. And I felt that there was a story to be told here about the low point for the NBA following Michael Jordan's retirement in 98. And that low point was this 2010-11 season when LeBron James, who was supposed to be the savior, the replacement for Michael, he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan. And he turned everything upside down by going on TV with his TV show, The Decision, in which he announced he was taking his talents to South Beach. The next day he had a pep rally in Miami and promised 7 championships and said it was all going to be easy, even though he'd never come close to winning a championship. And so that was a terrible thing for the NBA, because here was the guy who was supposed to replace Michael Jordan, who was loved by everybody. LeBron was hated by everybody. And it's a bad time for the NBA when the future of your league, people are tuning in to watch him lose. So how do we get to the point today, where we are today, where the NBA is so popular? People talk about it being the biggest league in America someday soon. And LeBron is driving a lot of that. His rivalry with Steph Curry and the Warriors is the best thing we've seen since Magic and Larry in the 80s. How does a guy go from being the most hated athlete in America to becoming this guy we see today? It's because of all the lessons he learned from all the people who opened up to me in this book. You know, it's from Doc Rivers and the Celtics, who were really offended by LeBron, and Kobe Bryant, who upheld the competitive standards, Dirk Nowitzki, who was a real idealist, Pat Riley, who helped LeBron so much, who talked to me for 9 hours, David Stern, Greg Popovich, Larry Bird, Joey Crawford, the referee. All these people really opened up to me, and you get like a comprehensive story of why the NBA works, why it's so popular today.
When you look at the overall picture of things, I find it interesting that, and you mentioned it numerous times as I've been reading this book, you know, what Michael did, what Michael said, Michael's advertisers, how other players viewed Michael. In some ways, to me, it becomes more and more clear that these guys were more consumed with being like Mike, as the commercial used to say, than blazing their own trail, because Mike blazed his own trail. You know, people forget that Jordan, what he did and the way he did it was so different than how other people had done it before him. And it was almost like the guys like the Kobe Bryants and LeBrons, it's almost like the Like Mike commercials almost like indoctrinated them.
Yeah, boy, that's such a good point, because when Michael Jordan came into the league in '84, the NBA had just barely survived the previous years. Several teams were on the verge of bankruptcy. There was talk the NBA would go under back then. I mean, the NBA Finals games weren't even on live TV. They weren't popular enough to be shown on live TV, believe it or not. So there was all this pressure within the league and from the sponsors, from the commercial sponsors, to find a replacement for Michael Jordan, because the thinking was that was the model. That was the way the NBA was going to keep succeeding and thriving, was if they had one star who did all the work, who carried everything, who scored all the points, won all the championships, made all the money off the court with making commercials and all that. One guy. That was the model. And so they tried to find that guy in Kobe Bryant, first of all. He was supposed to be the next Michael. He wasn't up to it. The next guy to come along was LeBron. And for the first half of his career, right up through the season of the book, and going on TV with the decision, LeBron, as a young man, was basically forced to try to act like somebody he wasn't. They were asking him to be like Mike, exactly as you said. And that's no way to build a league. He was doomed to fail doing that. He was doomed to make a mistake like the decision because he wasn't being himself. And that season taught him how to be himself. In that season, he learned who he was the hard way. He learned who he was from being beat up by all his rivals, by being held to account by the fans, by being helped up by Pat Riley and the Heat. And so it's not just about LeBron. It's about this whole environment of the NBA. It's a new look at how a league really works and how the greatest players in the league really drive what the league stands for.
We're talking with Ian Thomsen, author of the new book, The Soul of Basketball, the epic showdown between LeBron, Kobe, Doc, and Dirk that saved the NBA. And, you mentioned the way the league has evolved, and the league has really changed. It's not just in terms of, as you mentioned, the financial and the TV situations of the 80s, the explosion of Michael, but the players themselves has changed. I always say that in the NBA, it's about the name on the back of the jersey, whereas in a lot of other sports, it's about the name on the front of the jersey. The NBA has become such a players' league, and I feel like, as you write in this book, that guys like LeBron have become really the catalysts for empowering the players, because to me, the league wouldn't be as it is now, this league where every team is worth $1 billion.
No, it's totally true. This is a league built on star power. There are more guys in the NBA who are known on a first-name basis than there are in the other sports. I mean, you can name just about anybody, all of the best players. If you say Russell, we know you're talking about Russell Westbrook. If you say James, we know you're talking about James Harden. LeBron, obviously, I mean, that's the only LeBron most of us have ever heard of. Kobe, all these guys, Dirk, all these guys are known on the first-name basis. And yet, they are nothing, unless they plug themselves into something bigger than themselves. They are only validated if they play for their team. And that's what LeBron was searching for. LeBron was making more money off the court than anybody in the league, even though he hadn't won a championship. And he was the only guy that could have, based on his free agency, commanded a live TV show. And yet he'd never been more depressed. He'd never been in worse shape as a player than he was that season, because he hadn't won and because he didn't know how. He didn't have the players around him. He didn't know how to carry himself on the court as a leader. He was just too young, and he'd spent the first half of his career, as we discussed earlier, trying to be something he wasn't. So he had to learn all those lessons. At the end of the day, this league really, and you get this from living overseas as I did for 6 years, and from players like Dirk Nowitzki. Basketball is seen around the world as a theater to American values. It's like a melting pot league, and it's about something much more valuable than money. And that's what LeBron had to find. LeBron had all the money in the world, all the fame, but he was searching for that thing more valuable than money. And that's why all these guys opened up to me. That's why all these guys talked to me, because I was writing a book about that thing that really drives them.
Ian Thomsen joining us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Ian, I always viewed when LeBron went to Miami and came back to Cleveland, it's almost like he left Cleveland as one person and he came back as a different person. Almost like when a young man goes to college and comes back from college. It's like they get exposed to a whole different world, a whole different variety of culture and things. And I feel like, people know about Pat Riley, about how disciplined he is, about the body fat checks, about how structured, and how much he is ingrained from the old school of the game, and he's been able to evolve that to the modern player. And it seems like when LeBron came back from Miami to Cleveland as he did, it was almost as if he had grown up in terms of basketball.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Pat Riley, we talked for 9 hours for this book. It's the first time he's talked about all of this. And he said he learned something very valuable very early in his coaching career with the Lakers back in the 80s. He was a brand new coach, a very young guy, and he approached Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on his team. And Pat and Kareem had known each other for a long time. They played against each other for years. And Pat said to Kareem, look, I really need your leadership. I need you to do this and this. And Kareem said, that's fine. But here's what I need from you, Pat, as coach. I need you to deal with all these other guys. And he was pointing to all the other guys out on the practice court. He said, I need you to create structure. I want them to be on time. I want them to know what the plays are. I can't have you depending on me to police them and to make everything right. You need to give me the structure in the organization so that I can thrive. And Pat took away from that. That's what the great players need. You can't ask them to change everything. They want everything set up so they can be who they are and they can have the influence they need to have on their team. But if you can't ask them to coach the team too and to create the organization. He said, that's what I've been doing ever since. That's what he did with the Lakers. That's what he did with the Knicks. That's what he's doing now with the Miami Heat. And that's what LeBron tried to bring with him when he went back to Cleveland. He tried from the ground up, and with David Griffin as the GM, he was able to do that for sure, because David Griffin understood exactly where LeBron was coming from on all this. So he was able to create that environment, and he was not able to do that his first time around in Cleveland because he didn't know anything about it.
Pat Riley, a guy who he's just a legend in the league. Is there something about when you spoke to him, was it something he said or something about him that really stood out to you that in your mind separates him, not just from other guys who have been around the league as long as he has, but from other executives? What is unique about Pat Riley that sets him apart?
His self-belief, and he believes in the values that he practices and preaches. So he told me for 4 years before he recruited those 3 guys to Miami, he'd been planning to do it. And for the 2 years previously, he just invested everything in trying to get Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh to sign as free agents, something had never been done before. And no one saw it coming either. In the months leading up to that free agency class in 2010, no one was talking about Miami getting all 3 guys. And yet Pat had been gearing the entire franchise to do just that. I mean, what kind of guts does that take? You're doing this thing in secret. You're basically sacrificing 2 seasons of your franchise on this lark, thinking that you can possibly recruit all 3 guys, something that's never been done before. That's poker playing right there. That's taking a huge risk. And if he had not got those guys, if it had failed, he had 2 players under contract. He had Joel Anthony and Mario Chalmers, and that was it. That was all they had. So talk about putting all your chips on the table on the one hand, and yet he believed he could do it. And then he told me the story of how he recruited LeBron in the meeting in Cleveland. It was close to 3 hours. He sat there with his coach, his owner, other people from the front office, including Alonzo Mourning, and he laid out the blueprint of how it was going to happen. He showed LeBron the history of the league and how hard it was to win a championship unless you had 2 All-Stars or Hall of Famers with you. And all the other stuff they talked about, it's all in the book in great detail. And I just learned so much from how you have to be willing to risk everything to pull off something like this. And you have to really believe in the values of what you're doing. We talk so much about money and commercial things with the NBA, but really what it comes down to, the only stuff that really matters are the values and putting the team ahead of everything else. And that's what Pat Riley's all about at the end of the day, and that's what LeBron is all about now too.
The book is called The Soul of Basketball. Author Ian Thomsen joining us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Ian, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit more about LeBron because, after the game last night, the conjecture is blowing up all over online. Is LeBron going to leave? What is LeBron's future? If the team loses in the first round, could Cleveland keep him? What do you think LeBron is going to do? What in your gut do you think LeBron's future is?
Well, first of all, I think he's going to win this series. In my mind, he's one of the three great players in the history of the league now. He's moved past Larry Bird. He influences the game at both ends of the floor more than Magic Johnson did. He's every bit the passer Magic was and a better scorer. So it's Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James, those three guys. And if Michael Jordan was in this position right now, I think we'd all feel fairly confident that he would find a way to lead his team through a first-round series like this. I have the same confidence for LeBron at this point. I mean, he's never played better. He's still fresh, even though he's in his 15th year. He led the league in minutes and played every game. I think he's going to get through this series. And then as for the summer, it's just totally different from how it was in 2010. Back then, for 2 years, he was encouraging people to ask him about free agency. He loved it. He thought he was acting like it was as important as playing the game itself back then. He was a young guy. He didn't know better. Now he does. And if you ask him about free agency, he says, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't want to talk about it now, and I'm going to worry about it after the season, and right now I'm just trying to win. And you believe him. You really believe him now that he's doing that. And the people around him, all the reports are the people around him are saying, we don't know what he's going to do. I think when it comes time for him to decide what he's going to do, it's going to be based on basketball. Because this is a guy that's so devoted. He's in such great shape. He works so hard at every phase of the game. He's not going to go somewhere because it's going to be good for his movie career or his commercial career. I think he's totally wedded to basketball and trying to figure out how great he can be while he still has time to play. And so it's going to be a basketball decision. And that's what it was back then in 2010 too. It's just he screwed up the way he told people what he was doing. But that was a basketball decision then. And it's going to be a basketball decision now, which is why so many people are talking about Philadelphia as a possible landing spot for him.
I saw Chris Sheridan. I'll ask you one more before I let you go. And Ian Thomsen, I really appreciate the time today here on 97.3 ESPN. I saw Chris Sheridan, who has now predicted where LeBron is going to go each time. He says that his sources are telling him that part of the decision of where he goes is going to be influenced by the ownership, because apparently he is very uncomfortable with Dan Gilbert's politics and his support of the current president. How much do you think LeBron's beliefs in politics and social issues really do affect his decisions?
I'll stick to my guns on this. I think I agree that he and Dan Gilbert are not on the same page at all in all sorts of areas. But I think ownership influences LeBron in this decision as far as how good of an owner he'd be working with. Will the owner help him win championships? There's a reason why you only see the same teams contending year after year, winning the championships year after year. Mm-hmm. It's because it's just so hard to win an NBA championship, and if it doesn't start at the top and work its way down from top to bottom, that team can't win. And you can't ask. Let's say, for example, people talk about LeBron playing for the Knicks someday and saving the Knicks. He can't save the Knicks. They're a dysfunctional organization from the top down. And that was Pat Riley's lesson. So I don't think politics is going to be nearly as important to him as winning. I just think it's so winning is so important to him now. You can see it in his play, in his devotion to the game, and that's all that's going to matter, really.
Is that where possibly someone like Jerry West could come in, because he has so much respect for Jerry West? We saw him stop twice at the All-Star game and talk to Jerry before the game and at one of the timeouts. Is that the kind of person that can really influence LeBron's next move?
I mean, someone like that for sure. I don't see how the Warriors could ever have the space, salary space to get LeBron. I mean, the other thing, I would not see LeBron taking the salary cut to go somewhere. He shouldn't. Why should the best player, the most important player, take less money? I don't see that happening either. So it's going to have to be a team that has the space and a team that has the structure. Jerry West is a guy that creates structure for sure. There's no doubt of that. But that's why Philadelphia just makes so much sense to me. He can stay in the East, doesn't have to go out West and compete against those great teams year after year. There are young players on the 76ers who can help extend LeBron's career. And I don't know, that one is just so intriguing. They have the cap space. They would have to make a couple of moves to open up the additional space, but they could do it. And I'm sure they would do it if they thought they had a chance to get them.
The book is called The Soul of Basketball, the epic showdown between LeBron, Kobe, Doc, and Dirk that saved the NBA. Ian Thomsen, the author, joining us today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Ian, I really appreciate the time today. The book is a great read, lots of great insights, and I highly encourage everyone, please get this book, because if you want to know more about LeBron and what goes into the decision-making of these guys, this is the book to read. Ian, great book, and appreciate the time on a Saturday.
I appreciate it, Josh. Thank you so much.